Welcome to another Telltale Books video. I'm Greg, and I'm here starting a new series about another of my favorite authors, James Blish, another of the Golden Age authors, who most people probably know him best as the first author who wrote novelizations and then wrote pastiches, continuings of the original Star Trek television series. The books which novelize all of the original Star Trek episodes were all written by James Blish. And then the very first novel beyond that, Spock Must Die, was also written by James Blish. But he's probably best known for a short story titled Surface Tension, which is an amazing little short story, one that has been anthologized a great deal. Blish was part of 1930s fandom. In 1935, he started publishing his own fanzine and published his first 6 stories in the issues of that fanzine. This is when he was 14 years old. He started the magazine, kept it going for 2 years to when he was 15 years old. So his first 6 stories in his bibliography are amateur works published in his own fanzine. And I'm going to cover all 6 of them here because, number one, I cannot find readable copies of all 6 of these issues of the fanzine, so I can't read all 6 stories. I was only able to find 3 of the issues of the fanzine as PDFs online. And the first one, the scan of the magazine came through such that you really can't read it. So I was only able to get a hold of the 3rd and 4th story, and after reading the 3rd story, I decided to just lump them all together in one video and cover them all, because they're just not worth spending 6 videos getting into. They're all a series about this. He's an anti-hero. He's a pirate. He calls himself the Planeteer. And so that's the name of the series. It's the name of the magazine, too, is the Planeteer. First issue was November 1935. And the last of his stories was in April of 1936. So a very short span of time. He published Neptunian Refuge. Second story is Mad Vision. The 3rd story, which is the one I read, Pursuit into Nowhere. The 4th story, Threat from Copernicus. 5th story is Trail of the Comet. And the 6th story is Bat Shadow Shroud. Now, like I say, I only read the 3rd story, Pursuit into Nowhere, so that's the only one I can really go into any detail about. But I'm assuming, I can only get a hold of the 3rd and 4th stories. I'm assuming, without being able to read the rest of the stories, that they're all about the same. And Pursuit into Nowhere, frankly, is extremely amateur, loaded with typos, very bad characterization, plots that are extremely cliched, and just no characterization, not much of a plot, not much of a story. All you have in these are a lot of very inventive super science that just seems to pop up out of nowhere whenever a character needs it to get one up on the other. And the Planeteer is being chased by authorities in the solar system. And in Pursuit into Nowhere, the Planeteer has this ability that nobody else knows about, where he can move his ship into the 4th dimension. Well, somehow the Avenger, I think, is the name of the guy that's pursuing him in this story. he follows him into the fourth dimension. So now this guy knows how to do it. Um, these are not good stories. Okay, they were written by a 14, then possibly 15-year-old guy. No, he would have been 14 the whole time because his birthday wasn't until May. And the last one of these was in April. So he was 14 the whole time he was writing these. They're juvenile works. They're not the works of an adult experienced writer. And that is very, very apparent in reading Pursuit into Nowhere. So this is of historical interest only. If you haven't really read anything by Blish and this is your first encounter with Blish and you read Pursuit into Nowhere, at the end of it you're going to go, how did this guy ever become a writer? Because at this time all he had were a lot of good intentions and fascination with science fiction. He didn't have any ability, which is interesting to see, starting off from writing very bad fiction, how he came to be one of the most respected writers in science fiction. I mean, before he wrote all the Star Trek stuff, he wrote the Cities in Flight series, which is very well known, extremely well regarded. And he wrote A Case of Conscience, which I believe won the Hugo. Yeah, 1959 Hugo Award for Best Novel. This is what we're dealing with here. And you read these first 6 stories, you're going to be scratching your head thinking, how did he ever win a Hugo Award? How did he ever get there? And that's what we're going to find out following through the rest of his work. The next one I'm going to talk about is his first professional sale titled Emergency Refueling, which he sold 4 years later in 1940. So he's 18 years old now. And he sells his first professional story to Frederick Pohl at Super Science Stories for the March 1940 issue. It's just a short story. I'm going to read it and I'm going to do a video talking about it. That'll be our next James Blish. Jumping ahead to number 7 in his bibliography. Have you ever read any of these early Planeteer stories by James Blish? If so, leave me your thoughts. Otherwise, like the video, subscribe to our channel, come on back for more James Blish and everyone else that I talk about.